Hi everyone, my name is Li Yishuan, and I will talk about the introduction to the case study. The legitimacy of public powers came from the peoples, and corruption occurs when this authority is misused for personal benefits. Today, corruptions remain widespread, often driven by abuse of power that lead to financial misconduct and social harm. This study examined the Airbus corruption scandal, one of the largest corporate bribery cases in modern history. Airbus was found guilty of using bribes to secure global aircraft contracts, exposing major weaknesses in governance and compliance system. This case is important because it shows how high-level corporate misconduct can damage society, the economies, and organizational reputation. By analyzing the scandal, we gain insight into how large-scale corruption occurs and how stronger governance and stakeholder pressure can prevent similar abuse in the future.
Hey everyone, right now I will be presenting the background of the Airbus corruption scandal. The Airbus case is considered one of the biggest and most complex corporate bribery scandals in modern history. The unethical activities mainly took place between 2008 and 2015 across regions such as Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. During this period, Airbus used third-party intermediaries and consultants to secretly pay bribes in order to secure major aircraft deals. These payments were discussed as normal business expenses, such as consultancy fees or marketing commissions. However, investigation later revealed that the real purpose was to influence government officials and key decision makers in both civil and military aviation contracts. Because of suspicious transactions, three major enforcement bodies, the UK Serious Fraud Office, France Parquet National Financial, and the US Department of Justice, launched a joint investigation. Through this process, Airbus was found to have failed to disclose the use of agents, submitted misleading information, and breached several important anti-corruption laws, including the UK Bribery Act and the US Foreign Corrupt Practices Act in January 2020. Airbus agreed to pay a global settlement of $3.6 billion, making one of the largest penalties ever for corporate corruption. After admitting their wrongdoing, the company introduced extensive reforms to strengthen compliance, improve transparency, and prevent such misconduct from happening again. Overall, the background of this case shows how large companies can misuse their power across borders and highlights what strong governance and international cooperation are needed to fight corruption. Thank you very much. I pass it to the next presenter.
So for my part, I will present the case coverage of the SRC international scandal. Firstly, Al Jazeera reported that Najib Razak was sentenced to 12 years in prison for offences related to SRC International. Their coverage focused on the court decision and its global impact. Secondly, the Star highlighted the transfer of 42 million into Najib's personal bank account, explaining how the money was moved through intermediary companies before reaching him. Lastly, the South China Morning Post covered the moment Najib began serving his prison sentence after his final appeal was rejected. This report emphasized how the case affected Malaysia's international reputations. Overall, these media sources clearly show consistent coverage of the funds transfer, personal spending, and the final convictions.
Hello everyone, my name is Li Yan, and today I will briefly explain the key offenses and the law involved in the Airbus corruption case. And between 2011 and 2015, Airbus used a third-party consultant to make illegal payments in several countries, including Malaysia. And this action led to three main offenses: bribery, false accounting, and a failure of corporate governance. In simple terms, Airbus paid bribes, had the payments, and did not have strong internal controls to stop corruption. These offences triggered investigations under three major laws: the UK Bribery Act, and the French Spain II law, and the US Foreign Corrupt Practice Act. These laws focus on preventing bribery and improving corporate complaints. And finally, in 2020, Airbus agreed to pay a record €3.6 billion in penalties to the UK, France, and the United States. This case became one of the largest corruption settlements in history. That's it.
So, good morning everyone. Today I will be sharing the key steps that organizations like Airbus can take to address integrity and also the corruption issues. So, the first solution for Airbus to address integrity is to create an open internal whistleblowing system. One of the most effective ways to enhance integrity within an organization is to introduce an open and secure whistleblower system. This kind of system not only encourage employees to report misconduct, but also strengthen the overall ethical culture of the company. As a French business, Airbus is required to comply with French SEPIN 2 law passed in 2016. This law makes whistleblowing system mandatory for companies with over 15 employees. It also ensures that whistleblowers' identity are protected and they are not discriminated against after reporting the wrongdoing. According to Daniel 2023, organizations must go beyond merely setting up this system and also actively protect those who came forward. Furthermore, Meyer et al. 2016 emphasized that strong whistleblowers protection play a critical role in preventing unethical behavior and misuse of power. In other words, when people feel safe to speak up, corruption will make becomes harder to hide. Beyond internal system, enforcement of external legal frameworks is just as important. Let's take the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission 2009 as an example. The law itself outlines strong anti-corruption measures, but according to Mushida and Maslena 2019, simply having this law isn't enough. Without aggressive enforcement, they are practically ineffective. This idea is reinforced by Jabba et al. 2023, who argues that visible legal action sends a clear and powerful message that corruption will not be tolerated. When individuals or companies know they are responsible of doing corruption, they are less likely to engage in corrupt activities due to the fear on taking responsibility.
Hi, my name is Jamie, and now I'll be analyzing the organization impact of this case on Airbus, focusing on 5 key areas. First is the financial impact. Due to lack of complaints mechanism, Airbus was fined 3.6 billion. This wasn't just a one-time penalty, it disrupted the company budget, affecting R&D market expansion and new projects, directly weakening long-term competitiveness. Second is reputation loss. After the case was exposed, trust from government clients, international partners, and investors declined. In the aerospace industry, reputation itself is a form of capital. A damaged reputation weakens the company's advantage in bidding for large contracts, and this impact can last for years. Third is cultural breakdown. Misconduct by senior leadership lowered employee morale and created value confusion. When unethical behavior comes from the top, employer begins to question whether the organization truly values integrity. This reduces team cohesion, engagement, and makes internal communication more difficult. Fourth is industry pressure. The Airbus case drew stricter scrutiny to the entire aerospace sector. Competitors had to increase transparency to protect themselves, and regulators reassess corporate practices. As a result, complaints caused across the industry rose and standards shifted. Finally, government impact. The case exposed gaps in internal anti-corruption and mechanism, forcing management to replace executive, review decision-making process, and accept greater external oversight. In the short term, this affected operational efficiency and created organization instability. That's all for my part. Thank you.
Cool.
Hello everyone, my name is Wizar. On this slide, I want to highlight some of the key lessons that we can take from the Airbus correction case. First, the case shows how weak internet controls can create space for bribery and other unethical behaviors. Even though Airbus is a major multinational company, its systems were not strong enough to detect or prevent improper payments. This reminds us that no organization is too large or too reputable to be vulnerable if its internet checks are ineffective. Second, we see that having compliant policy on paper is not enough. Airbus technically have compliance frameworks, but they were not consistently applied in daily operations. This gap between policy and practice is where correction can easily take root. It emphasized that compliance must be a lived process, not just a written document. Another important lesson is the role of ethical leadership and independent oversight. Leaders set the tone for an organization culture. When leaders actively promote integrity and allow independent compliance teams to operate without interference, employees are more likely to make ethical decisions. Without that leadership commitment, even the best policy will fail. Connected to that, a strong etiquette culture helps applying to resist pressure, whether the pressure comes from targets, competition, or senior management. A culture based on integrity gives employees the confidence to say no to an etiquette practice. Finally, the Airbus case shows the importance of international cooperation. Authorities from France, the United Kingdom, and the United States work together to investigate and enforce credibility, accountability. This demonstrates that corruption, especially on a global scale, cannot be tackled by one country alone. It requires cross-border collaboration to hold large companies to be responsible. Overall, this lesson reminds us that integrity, strong controls, effective leadership, and international collaboration are essential for preventing corruption and maintaining trust in global organizations. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sujashan and now I'm going to talk about the summary of the case study. So the Airbus scandal shows how the company used the price to secure the aircraft contract in a different country. This led to the major investigation from the authorities in the US, UK, and also France. In 2020, the Airbus paid around 3.6 billion fines, which affected their finance, global reputations, and the public trust. The scandal also exposed the weaknesses in their internal control and the company culture. After the case, Airbus introduced a stronger complaint system and focused more on the ethical practice. Overall, this case reminds us that corruption create a long-term damage and strong integrity is essential for any organization. So that's all for our presentation here. Thank you.